Alrighty, in the last video, we saw how to access individual items out of a list. In this video, we'll see how to access all of the items out of a list at the same time. So suppose we had a list of numbers. We could print out each item one at a time. Print number 0, 1, 2, 3. There's shortcomings to this. I mean, it's a lot of text, but there's also the problem of we might not know how many numbers are in here. What if there's 50 numbers, or it's a shopping list and a user has added 1,000 items? We're not going to write 1,000 print statements. So just like before, when we talked about repeating processes, this is the same idea. Our solution is to use a loop. We can use both a for loop and a while loop. And in this first example, I'll show you a for loop. It's really nice and simple. The syntax to do this in Python is really clean, especially compared to some other programming languages. So here we have a numbers list, same one, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And all we have to do is write our for loop for number or whatever item name we want in numbers, colon, and number is going to automatically have the value of 1, 2, 3, 4 of the piece of data inside of the list. So let's do an example, and I'll actually quit out of Python here, and I'll make a new file called for loop. And let's make our colors list. Those brackets, let's do purple again, teal, and let's do magenta. Okay, and if I want to print them all out on their own, I would just do for, and we could call it C, we could call it color, it doesn't matter, in colors. So just like before where we had a range here for a for loop, if you remember, I actually really quickly in the loop section said, yeah, we can use a list, but we don't know what lists are yet. So another one of those things where you just kind of have to wait, unfortunately. So here we go, we can do a print. The simplest thing would just be to print color. And that's it. So color is, rather than, when we did for x in range 1, 2 or something, or 1 to 5, whatever it is, x stored a numeric value. In this case, color will store whatever the value is in that list. So we could have strings, but I could also add afterwards, let's add true, a Boolean, and 8.9. Okay, so let's print this now. Let me make some space. Python 3 for loop, and we get purple, teal, magenta, true, 8.9. So it's really simple to use a for loop to iterate through a list. And we don't have to just print things, of course. I'll comment this out, and we could have another list called numbers and set it equal to just random numbers if we wanted to. 4, 6, 2, 8, 9, 7, whatever it is, 10. And we could do for num in numbers. Let's do print num times num. So we'll just square them. Simple. And there we go. We get 1636 down to 100. Totally, not totally random, but random-ish numbers that we're printing out from a list and squaring. Okay, so that's using a for loop. So next, let's see how to do it with a while loop. And using a while loop is a little bit more complicated. It's a little more syntax. That doesn't necessarily make it worse. And I'll actually talk about a situation where you would want to use a while loop. But let's look at it first. So to use a while loop, we have to basically take advantage of the index of each item in the list. So we start with a variable that often is called I for index, or idx, or index, or ix, it doesn't really matter. And we set it equal to 0. And what we're going to do is print out the first item, number 0, then we'll add 1 to I, and then we'll print out numbers 1, and so on, until we get to the end of the list, the last index. So you can see here our loop runs while I is less than the length of numbers. And notice it's less than, not less than or equal to, because length is 1, 2, 3, 4. And if we tried to access numbers square bracket 4, that's out of the list range, so we need to do less than the length. And then all we do is access numbers I, and we have to add 1 to I each time through, otherwise we get an infinite loop. So let's go make a file. This time I will call it whileloop.py, and I'll copy over my colors. And let's actually add one more. How about crimson? And I lied, I'll do 2 more. Let's do emerald green. Okay. So what we can do now is loop through. So using a while loop, we set up an initial index variable. I'll call it index, and it needs to start at 0, unless we want it to start at the end, which we could also do. Let's start with index 0, and then we'll have a while loop. So while index is less than, and we want it to be less than the length of colors. So while it's less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but we don't want to hard code 5 in because we don't know how many items are in here potentially. So while that's the case, we could just start by printing colors square bracket index. And if I left this on its own right now, it would print purple over and over and over because index is set to be 0 and we're never changing it. So we need to increment index plus equals 1. So let's give it a shot. Let's do Python 3 while loop .py, and there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if all we wanted to do is print out data or just access the data directly from inside the list to do something with it, it's much easier to use a for loop in my opinion. Cleaner, nicer looking, just shorter. But sometimes we might want to actually do something with the index. So with these colors, this is a very silly example, but what if we wanted to print out something like 0 item, or how about 0 color is purple, and then 1 color is teal, and so on. We need to actually have the index available to us, which we don't by default in the for loop. So we could do something like this. We'll do a print with an f string, and let's do, instead of here, we'll add index, colon, and then let's do colors index. So this will give us 0, colon, purple. Okay? So we're going to add the index, interpolate that into the string, and then the colors, square brackets, index. So 0, and then purple, 1, teal. And let's take a look. And there we go. 0, purple, 1, teal, and so on. Maybe not what you would need to do all the time. Just printing out a list of colors isn't exactly the most useful thing either. But there definitely are situations where you may want to take advantage of the index. So you could use a while loop to do that because you already have the index. But typically, I prefer for loop if you can get away with it. It's just so much nicer looking. 2 options though. Pick the one you prefer. They both work.